Hey guys, welcome to episode 9 of Into the Rift. We've got the panelists for this week, John Crichton, Stephen Nguyen, Thomas Watts, and Dave True. Okay, so this week we're basically going to be talking about all of the roster changes. Some of them are going to be confirmed. A lot of the things we talk about are probably going to be rumors because a lot of things haven't actually been signed by the players yet. We're probably going to finish off talking a little bit about the changes to career as well. So we're going to dive straight in. We're going to start with the changes to team course. We'll start off talking about Impaler in, Jessus in, and Santorin leaving, as well as LOD. John, what do you make of this roster? Do you think that it's a lot stronger and Coast have a chance of coming back into the LCS?
I wouldn't say the players individually are stronger, but if you're bringing in like two team players like Impaler and Jessus, then I don't see how it can go wrong. You know, Impaler shown on when he done a bit of streaming with the Rank 5 team, he's got a good control of the unit as such when they were playing together. So I've no doubt he'll take up the shot calling role in that team. Jessus is pretty solid. I mean, for anyone to go into LCS in a new position that you've not played before, like keep in mind Jessus was an AD carry, and his Ziggs was, you know, up there with the best in Europe. So I don't see it as a bad thing at all. Individually, I don't know if it's like a big upgrade, like Santorin versus Impaler. I've yet to see Santorin against like LCS caliber players. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think it's good.
Does anyone else think of anything like that?
I think Coast has a problem, and it's not a roster. The problem with Coast is their management is just insane. They have burned through so many people, you know, the 2 Korean challenger players that were supposed to be a godsend. And then they had 2 different roster iterations and all these various forms and fashions that they're taking into tournaments. And it's just like, where, who, how? And my question with the roster is, how on earth do you expect this team to succeed when you're not giving them the tools they need to do just that? No. They've had a few great tournaments, and then a couple of other times it's just been like, why are you here? Why is this group here? So if Impaler and Jessus can stick with the team and the team can gain some consistency, I think it will be strong. But looking at how Coast has managed the team in the past, 9 months, I don't have much faith.
Just think about the message you're sending to those players. Every time you swap out people continuously, you're like, this team isn't good enough. We need to fix something. So always when you're playing for that team, the back of your mind is, oh crap, like one bad game, or maybe not even a bad game. Maybe they just feel like my time's up, so my time's up and I get sent out the door. You know, like when you're replacing players this quickly, that almost like that disenfranchises the players you have. It's like, what if I get this team into the LCS and then I immediately get booted for somebody better or somebody they perceive to be better? Like, then I just wasted my time, right? So it's like, it's almost, I think this is really not, I agree with Tom. Their management's a big issue.
And don't get me wrong, I do understand that when you're at a professional level, you absolutely are here for a job. You are here to win. And if you are not winning, you need to get replaced. But there's a fine line between giving a team too short a leash to grow and make mistakes and, you know, kind of just taking your lumps and yanking someone. And that I think Coast management has not gotten that chunk of it, that necessary part of building a team down correctly. So I'm sorry. In this case, I think they've messed up, and for their sakes, to travel across the Atlantic to compete, I hope they have a good result. That's a long way to go to get booted after like a month.
Right.
Stephen, do you think that the Coast management are a big problem to blame as well for the state of their team lately?
Yes, mainly because I don't know if the person in charge of the PR even knows anything about League, because a lot of their announcements are prefaced with, I'm not necessarily, maybe not lies, but exaggerations. I distinctly remember the 2 Korean challengers being Diamond 4 or something like that, and I think they said that their bot lane was commonly known to be a world-class bot lane. I don't know if there's some kind of disconnect of some disconnect of information there, but it's just messy. Like, I don't know how you can seriously call Sheep and Mashme a world-class bot lane when they've never competed internationally. And they keep booting these players after a short amount of time? I don't know. I think they're just grasping for straws.
Who's to say it's not the team that's deciding this, though? Like, we're saying it's management's fault, but you don't really know what's going on inside that team. Like, for example, the Santorin thing. Like, if TSM come knocking at your door, are you going to turn them down?
That one might not be their fault.
Right.
That's true.
Okay.
That one might not be.
And
Right.
Zion. It's like, I think there's a lot more going on behind the scenes within the team. And like Jez is coming in. Who's to say that like Jez has been released for SK for like a good while now? Like, who's to say he's not been in contact with them doing other things? Like, you know, he could have been picked up for some analysing or coaching or something like that. Like, there's so many things going behind the scenes that you can't just blame management, you know what I mean, unless we have like the full picture.
Okay, the reason I would blame management in most cases is because this has been it has to be a failure in management on some level, because either management is yanking players before they can compete and succeed, or there is a subset of the team that is so insanely toxic that it's driving players away and needs to get yanked. Now, I do see what you're saying with Santorin, and that might be the exception to the rule. But I also feel very comfortable saying that there is something wrong on that team. And at the end of the day, it's management's job to see the problem and try and fix it. And it just looks like they're frantically flailing and getting very little done.
Yep.
That's the thing with a lot of challenger teams, though. It's more like the management as such, like, have a step back, and it's more like the players that dominate, you know, what happens as such. That's the main difference that I see anyway.
I think this is probably going more into the topic of the fact that the West they don't have the respect that the East have for their management. Like, you would never ever see Asian teams going away the way that Western teams do these days. Like, you see players don't listen to their coaches, they don't listen to their managers, especially the younger teams in the Challenger Series. They have like no respect for their management whatsoever. They may as well just be five friends playing rank fives together and managing themselves. Talking about TSM and Santorin that you were going off on before, though, do you think that Santorin will be able to fill the void that Amazing couldn't do? Do you think he'll fit more their playstyle than what Amazing did?
I'm not convinced he'll be any better. Like, people are all on this like hype train about him, but I mean, I don't think he's gonna come in and be like this miracle jungle. Like, I think
he's got
he'll be
a better situation.
I mean, he's definitely got a better situation to come into because he's not replacing the odd one, and the team's doing well. So I don't think there's going to be too much hype around him for the majority. Like, there already is some clear hype around him, but it isn't going to be the same level that Amazing came in under, the same amount of pressure. And I think that's good because he's not like, I haven't seen anything that tells me this guy's going to be the next Meteos and dominate the LCS. No, I haven't seen anything that indicates that. But hey, he could fill the spot. That's all they really need. I mean, TSM is still an incredibly strong team. They don't need Meteos. They just need somebody who can do what they need. You know, like come support Bjergsen, support Turtle. That's it.
I think Santorin has a better chance for success than Amazing, because Amazing was really just thrown into the fire. Let's assume that TSM finalizes Santorin in the next couple of weeks. The spring split starts in January at the earliest.
Late January, if anything.
At least January. Let's just say January 1st, even though that's way too fast. It still is illustrative to my point. He's already in the States. He won't have as much of a visa problem. He won't have any kind of visa problem. He'll be there. That's now 2 months. Okay, give it 7 weeks because of Christmas, but that's 7 weeks for him to play with the team, to kind of get into the flow of things, to develop that chemistry, to be developed by the TSM coaching staff that Amazing simply didn't have because of circumstance. And like Dave said, you don't really need him to be Meteos. You need him to fulfill a specific role because you do kind of want to prop up the solo lanes as a jungle. That's what TSM really wants you to do, prop up the solo lanes. So develop into that role, and you'll come out, and if you can pick up a couple of wins early in the split and get a little momentum and confidence, the team can be really good. if they go with Santorin, the team has to work with him to develop him into what they want him to be, in my mind.
Do you guys
Well,
feel that
you've got one way
Santorin
to do
could
that.
actually become a world-class jungler? Like, TSM have proven that they can get to worlds, like, even with junglers that don't work with a team like Amazing. Does Santorin have the potential to become someone that can be a world-class jungler, that can bring TSM more than just to where they have been getting to in worlds?
I think if
I think
anything,
so.
Centrum at least has the potential to not fall flat on his face because, like Thomas said, he's not being thrown into the fire. It's not a Glaive situation where they have like a week before the LCS. It's not like the Amazing situation where they have like a week or two before LCS. He's going to have time to practice. It will be worse of a falling out than Amazing was if he doesn't work out, though, because he does have more time. He has better tools this time than Amazing to survive.
But you're not replacing a legend either, right?
No.
Like, I mean, TSM, there was one or two, like, Sob videos, and we'll miss you Amazing threads on Reddit, but it wasn't like the crazy insanity that ensued when Odd One retired. You know, even when Xpecial got kicked, people were like, whoa, for a little while. So I think replacing a player that's that legendary and that near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, that puts an insane amount of pressure on somebody. As for if he can become a world-class jungler, I mean, it's really one of those things that only time will tell. Any of the people, I really do think anybody who's playing the game at a challenger level right now has the mechanical ability or has at least some ability to play this game to such a high degree of play that they could, if they really applied to it and got all the proper training and could see through and fix some of their flaws, they could be world-class. I don't see why not for anybody who's that good at the game. It's just... not everybody's insane enough to put in the extra hours necessary or to really look at themselves that objectively and determine what is the weakest part of your game and drill that part and make that part better. Most people will do what they like to do. They'll play the champions that they're good at because they win on that. It's more fun, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. We'll see. I mean, if they do pick him up, I'm excited to see how he does because it's just. I like kind of when somebody gets a shot and they were kind of, here they were struggling to get into the LCS on Coast and now they might actually be playing for one of the top teams in the world. Like, that's kind of one of those Cinderella movie stories, right? And it's always kind of cool to see those actually work out for the better.
Okay, there's not really that much to say about TSM. They'll probably be holding their roster pretty tight. A team that are of interest, though, is Dignitas. They've had quite a few roster shuffles lately. Kiwi and Shifter are still signed in, and Crumbs, of course, but the bot lane has been broken up. The Cutie Pie has left. There's been rumor that Vasily could possibly be taking his place. Of course, this is a rumor. What do you guys think about the state of Dignitas currently in NA?
Why did they resign Kiwi? Other than Odie being a good stand-up guy. Apparently he offered them all to resign their contracts, like the whole team, so... When QD left, I guess he didn't take Kiwi's contract. But for me, as soon as QD turned the contract down, I would have just taken Kiwi's back from out of his hands and said, nope, sorry.
I think it was good faith, though. Like, he probably imagined that Kiwi would be like, nah, like, oh, my best friend's leaving. I'm going to step down as well, So it's just been that, like, sort of giving him that little thing. Look, we would have re-signed you. And then Kiwi's been like, you know what, man, I'm signing. Odie's like, oh no, hold on a minute. The name's on the dirty blind, boys. Sorry, I'm coming back. That's it. I'll take my 20 grand.
Well, help me out on the LCS rules because I have too many rules bouncing around in my head. Do you have to have 3 of your team at all to maintain your LCS spot, or is that just? I know Korea has it, and I'm 99.9% sure China does.
I'm pretty sure LCS has it too.
No, I think we looked up this rule last week we talked about it a bit last week on the show. Basically, because the team, it comes down to whether the team or the players own the spot. I think the only players that own the spot were the Super Hawk Crew people. I think they were the only players that owned it. I think every other team in the LCS owns the spot. And the rule is if you are a team in the LCS, you cannot take more than 2 players from any other LCS or Challenger team at any one time. So basically, Dignitas could throw out all 5 of their members, and then take 2 people from one Challenger team A, 2 people from Challenger Team B, or LCS Team A and LCS Team B, and then Ringer, guy random number 5, and that's your new LCS team, basically. It's why LMQ could technically still be in the LCS if the only player they keep is Zhao Wei Zhao.
Okay. Well, I guess in terms of Dignitas, knowing 3 players, I like Crumbs as a leader and in the leadership role. Shifter, he might stand under his turret, but he can at least stand up to most LCS mid laners, I guess. Kind of polishing his somewhat sketchy play style.
Mhm.
And it's tough to actually judge, Kiwi Kid with another AD carry because we've never seen him with it.
Mhm.
Can Kiwi Kid be the 0 to Vasily's Uzi, in that Vasily will get in your face like Uzi, and what made Uzi so effective in the Season 4 World Championship was that 0 would save his behind if Uzi went too deep. Can Kiwi Kid do that? Can they develop chemistry? I simply don't know. I would hope so, otherwise this signing is going to look completely ridiculous. And then the top lane's wide open. I have 0 insight there, but Lord knows, we'll get into it in a little while, with Korea spinning itself apart and becoming a Chinese farm system, there's certainly a bevy of top laners available now.
It's true. It's kind of interesting for Dig. I remember hearing somewhere that before Kiwi Code was top lane, he played AP mids, which is why they did really good whenever Kiwi Kid got Annie when she was really popular. So he kind of understands the mages. So, lately it's all kind of been about the melee supports. So if you put Kiwi Kid back on a ranged support, and with a new AD, he could potentially do okay. I'm also kind of in the same boat as Thomas when it comes to Shifter, considering the fact that I don't really agree with this playstyle. I don't really like him as a mid laner, to be honest, but I don't know. I'm okay with Crumb getting back, of course. Good leader. I don't know if any of this will fix Dignitas' problems, though, because something happens with Dig every season where they start off the season incredibly strong, they go undefeated or something, and then halfway through the season, or split, they crumble. Something regresses, and they go back to doing horrible. And that has happened through every roster change. It's happened. And I don't even know who to pinpoint the problem, but it's got to be some kind of coaching problem.
Speaking of fixing problems, do you think that the Piglet move to Curse is going to fix the problems that they have as a team?
Yes. A lot.
Yes.
Definitely a lot. I mean, come on. Cop was average at best. And people are really quick to hate on Piglet, be like, he's not even that good in Korea. I'm pretty sure if you teleport this conversation 1 year ago, in the past, I guarantee you we are all debating Piglet is at least in the conversation for best AD carry in the world.
Mm-hmm.
After Season 3 Worlds, he was easily in the you didn't have to say he was, but you would be kind of crazy to leave him out of that conversation.
Yeah, because he was on the best team.
Okay, but come on, dude. He was playing unbelievable at that World Championship.
No, I'm not saying the guy's bad. I'm just saying he was on the best team. That's
yeah, of course that makes you look better. But he was arguably one of the players that he played really well all throughout the beginning of OGN as well. So it's kind of just one of those things that I don't know. I think if that doesn't make her stronger, then I think this is almost Voyboy's last hurrah. If he doesn't do well with this team, it really is okay, dude, you're just not meant. It's not meant to be for you. Because this is the strongest bot lane Curse has had, this might be the strongest bot lane in the LCS.
I would agree there. I think to kind of jump on the Piglet hype train, as SK Telecom T1K was faltering throughout, I guess, Masters to a certain extent, even though it wasn't, the SK Telecom organization didn't drop a set, but particularly as they struggled through spring and to a certain extent summer, but he'd already started to drop off in summer, Piglet was the guy. as Faker kind of stumbled, that was like the one time Faker was proven to be human, Piglet was still a rock. What happened in summer is Piglet's positioning started getting kind of awkward, and obviously with Mondu never being able to reassume the form he had in winter, the bot lane just started failing. So if Curse is able to get the Piglet that in many cases was just a monster for T1K, it's a great deal. It's just, and I guess you have to assume, can Curse team fight and work around Piglet? It's going to be the Dignitas Santorin Team Coast conversation all over again. Does Piglet get over in time to develop chemistry with his teammates? Mechanically, I think you have an upgrade in Piglet over Cop. I think that's very fair. But what I'm going to say it again. Does he have the chemistry? Can Xpecial kind of tweak some of the positioning problems? Because if Piglet can get a lead in lane, depending on what champion he gets, but in many cases, if he could get a lead and not just get completely snowed under throughout his time with T1K, he could just brutalize the opposing team. It would just like the way that he played Vayne was hilarious. Oh, it's 15 minutes. Pumandu, go there, go do this, go over there. I'm gonna go hunt people. I don't want CS. And it worked for T1K because he was such a good Vayne player. So if he can do stuff like that where Curse can adapt to him and he can adapt to them, very solid addition. But again, it's one of those things where you have to wait and see.
It definitely is going to be a style change for that team because they're so used to having this AD carry that's super safe and is like, I'll be the last to die, guys, don't worry. But I'm probably going to miss half the damage output that I could put in. And Piglet's just like, nah, let's just do this. Let's see who's better. Let's be Bautis right now. And they just go like, it's so fun to watch him play.
It's going to be good.
I just really like watching him play, so I'm super excited. Like, I was a Curse fan a long time ago when they had St. Vicious and everything. I love that team, and I might start loving them again. Like, this could be fun to watch. Xpecial Piglet.
On top of the
2015 hype.
synergy and everything that they might have as problems, though, there's also like the language barriers, the culture differences. It's been said that Piglet actually has difficulty, like not being with his close, like with his family, with his close friends and stuff. Do you think it's possible that that might get to him and that could affect his performance in NA, though?
It's possible, but at the same time, I know Curse. I believe they signed a psychologist to the house, right? So I'm sure they could help along with that. And I don't know. I think Piglet will be fine, to be honest. In long term, I think he'll still be fine. He seems pretty strong as a person. Also, I just think Curse is just gonna. This is just an overall upgrade in general, like everyone kind of said. Curse has always been known to get in the lead early game, whether or not they win or lose the game. I think there's a statistic on through the LCS spot where they took a lead in about 90 of the games they played, even though they didn't win all of them. So having a more aggressive AD could really swing things in their favor. I don't know. I think new Curse is going to be really strong.
The way you overcome Piglet's issues being away from his close friends or his family or whatever snakes exist in his head, winning cures a lot of evils. If Curse starts winning, that'll go away. Now, if Curse goes in the tank, we'll be having this conversation again.
Very true.
Finishing off on our conversation about NA, there's one last team that I kind of want to talk about that isn't an LCS. It's Team Fusion, and that has the lineup of Macnoon, Nien Tunso, Nintendo, Kui, and Glee. I want to get your impressions on the team and what you actually think the team is going to achieve. John, you start.
Nintendo, please. I don't like flaming people, but I don't think the guy's good. I've watched enough NA solo queue and LCS to make my mind up on that one. Maybe he can prove me wrong, but putting Macnoon in the same team as Nintendo is just it's sacrilege.
Thorn made a tweet that was like, imagine if Macnoon knew in 2013 who he'd be playing with in 2014 or whatever. It's like, I just died laughing. It's like, oh my God. I'm super happy that Macnoon's actually trying to get back to the LCS though, because If you guys ever, do you guys ever see those videos that somebody makes like called like the Mac Noon Show? Or
Oh, just
something?
stream highlights. Yeah.
Yeah, there's stream highlights. Oh my god, that is. I honestly just die watching those. It's hysterical. So I'm super excited for that guy to be back in. I don't completely agree with John about Nintendo. I don't think he's terrible. I don't think I couldn't agree with Chase last week about him being a top contender for maybe TSM or something.
He's just a typical stoner.
Yeah, you just man, you can't really hate on that. Like he's just sitting in California smoking weed, playing video games, has a bunch of honeys around apparently, so he's living the life, man. He's living the life. Hey, if he gets into the 8th place team, like I think 8th to 6th, like that's where that team could be if they get into the LCS, and why not? Why not?
Mock Noon's hilarious. He would bring a comedy hour to the LCS, an unrivaled comedy hour. That's what I'll say. In terms of how the team's going to perform, the last time we saw Nintendo in the LCS, it was facepalm worthy, and there's no other way to put it. A lot of people like watching Mock Noon. Mock Noon's been out so long. It's like, well, I know you're really high-level Korean challenger, so you obviously still have mechanical skill. But is your champion pool there? Yes, no, maybe. I don't know. I've watched his stream on occasion, but past that, and that doesn't really translate that well. The bot lane, it's got LCS experience, and I think Nian Tanso has the ability to be a leader on that team, and then Hui is. Yeah, I mean, I think it can get to the LCS, but it won't be something where you're like, wow, this game is so nuanced. It's like watching chess. No. This game is going to be, we're going to beat the ever-living crap out of you, or you're going to beat the ever-living crap out of us, and there will be no in-between, sir. That is what it's going to be when those teams play.
Yeah.
Or when that team plays, excuse me.
So just to go back a bit, see in comparison, right? Let's look at that, right? Like we're talking about Santorin, and you don't know how good he's going to be on TSM, and then like as Chase said, Nintendo can be one of the top players in North America. Like let's just compare those two. Have you been watching any challenger stuff lately? Like Santorin just had his way with that guy like a good few times. You know what I mean? It's kind of So how can you question Santorin and then say Nintendo's got to do fine?
Oh, I just think that he could be.
When this guy's been like dominating him.
Well, it's just because of the same thing that the same point that I made speaking to Chase last week. Basically, is that Santorin has to perform on a team whose goal is to win Worlds, right? Whereas
so the
expectation's much higher than somebody who's performing on a team whose expectation is to make the LCS.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very large.
How you handle pressure, you're saying, rather than.
No, well, that exactly. More of that stuff comes into play. I don't think there's any question that Santorin's a better player at the moment than Nintendo, at least from everything that's been going on recently. It's just a matter of can they perform in the given roles that are being asked of them. I think Nintendo's proven that he can play in the LCS. Not well, but he can do it. There's a difference between that and somebody who's literally being asked to play for a team that is trying to win Worlds when I've never even seen him play at a high level, really. So it's vastly different.
Expectation.
Has been playing for a while. He's been he was at DreamHacks and stuff when he was 15. You know what I mean? It's not like he's just new
to. Of course.
Playing on things. He's been around the scene for a long time, and he's been at the top of Challenger for a long time. So.
Sure, but once you're playing for TSM, all bets are off. You have now 100,000 people. It's like taking somebody who's really good at playing, soccer. He's good in all the amateur leagues. You throw him at Barcelona or Madrid or something, and now, how do you play in front of however many people? How many people is that? 200,000 people in some of those stadiums. How do you do now?
When you're that age, though, that's when it's usually best because you're usually numb to the sort of outside. You know what I mean? It's like. Some people will.
Or you go crazy, and because you have 20,000 people all about you telling you that you're God's gift to mankind.
I think in a lot of cases, though, at that age is probably the best time to be able to deal with it because you don't think about it too much. You're just too busy being ambitious.
That's true. It's possible.
Okay. Finishing up on the NA business, we're going to move over to the other western region of Europe. Not that much confirmed stuff's been going on over here. We'll start off with some just departments. I can't speak English, even though it's my only language I can speak. Anyway, we'll start off talking about Tabs departing. Well, not re-signing with Alliance yet. Do you think that Reckles is going to end up on Alliance, and do you think that this is a good move for Alliance, considering their weaknesses in other lanes?
If they have the money,
I think
they will. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? I mean, according to the Daily Dot piece, Reckles obviously doesn't want to be on Fnatic. Or we don't know the context. That's true. A lot of people are hating on him just for
I've heard
the
rumors
article.
like disagreements between two players, Reckless being one of them, and a certain someone that's only been feeding lately in every competition. Maybe the two of them not getting on too well.
I also heard that prior to Worlds, I also heard prior to Worlds, he was asking for a new mid laner on the team. He didn't think Peke was performing. I get it.
A bit more north than that. The lane to the north.
Okay, do you want to just you can just say the name, my friend.
I think him and Soaz haven't been getting on for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think that's been a problem. I don't think Pecky and Cyanide are doing that great, but they've done okay at Worlds. But yeah, I would definitely see like 3 of those people getting replaced on that team if Reckless wanted to stay, or
Yeah, because Peke ended up performing at Worlds, but yeah, so has his attitude. Like the fact that you're on a team that's trying to win Worlds, or you claim you're trying to win Worlds, yet you refuse to play top lane in solo queue is a little bit perplexing.
Do you think that Alliance changing out their AD carry would be the best bet for that team, though?
Is Wicked still on the team?
Yes.
Then
Is he gonna is he gonna practice more than just Aurelio?
Hey man, his champion pool's not that bad. Incarnation said so in an AMA, so it must be true.
Okay. I'm gonna be
He's got a small-
show me guy. and
He's
just
got a
say, "Show me."
He's got a smaller champion pool than Amazing. I'm just gonna leave that there.
Yeah, it's pretty. That's pretty bad. No, I don't think Tabs leaving was the best thing for them. But if you read he wrote some Ask FM thing that like sounded really whiny. He just had another one of those like really
The
complaint.
part about where he was talking about his teammates.
Yeah, my teammates don't love me, and this isn't all like sunshine and rainbows, and I'm only playing for one of the best teams, but. There's something about him, like, honestly, Tab seems like a good player, but there's something about, like, there's always something with him. There's always, like, there was that, after Worlds, he wrote that post about how he did his best, but he had all these things that didn't allow him to, and then as soon as he leaves Alliance, he writes this post. Like, I would be scared to let him into my organization, because just based on what he writes after he leaves things. He just seems like I don't know. Like obviously, I've never sat down or talked with the guy or anything like that, so I can't say this from personal experience. But just the way he departs things makes me seem like there's always like he's always got some crutch or something to put the blame on, if that makes sense.
I think there are 2 sides to every story, though.
There's 3, right? Your side, my side, and the truth.
Yeah.
Right, but that just reinforces my point. Yes, do I think Tab's a little bit whiny in his Ask FM post? Sure. And if I had been editing for him, I would have rolled up my newspaper and bopped him on the nose and said, "Do not do that," or at least do not phrase it that way. But it's just like, okay, so the team chemistry was off and you're leaving. Great, whatever. Can Reckless fix that team chemistry? Like, here's the thing. Reckless is obviously unhappy on Fnatic because either Fnatic's not working hard enough or whatever. Is he now going to magically be happy when he gets on Alliance, or is this just going to be a Band-Aid over a gushing wound? I guess that would be my question about the potential roster move.
Reckless would be.
And I don't know. Like,
Reckless would
Go
be
ahead,
like
I'm sorry, Steve.
No, that's no problem. Reckless would be the first step to solving some of Alliance's problems. Obviously, there's a lot of things you need to address on that team, but I don't know. I'd say getting Reckless is one very solid step into fixing Alliance.
Do you know what else they should do? I've been thinking about this long and hard. They should replace Wicked with Freddy.
You have to think
Right.
long and hard about
Freddy's
that.
already
Had a lettuce, you'd get
Best
more-
fit, hasn't he?
No, I was thinking about what they could do to come out, like what they could do. And I was like, that's what they should just do. If they're gonna go and buy out Reckless and pull him on, then they should just say screw this and then go and test Gay and say how much
I would
Freddy,
take
and just
Odo Amney
swap it.
before Freddy.
You would take who?
Odo Amney.
Why would you take him
Uh,
over Freddie?
What?
Despite
Well,
the fact, well, obviously he's
I've
like
watched
What did I
the
just
guy.
say?
I've watched him for like over 2 years now. I would take him over him. Freddy's good on Mundo. Name another champion that he wins lane on.
I don't know. Every single. He's been in the LCS. Sorry, he's been in the LCS. I'm saying, I don't know. He's been in the LCS for 2 years. Like, he's been fine in every.
He's been in the LCS for 2 years and he can't name one champion that he's good on other than Mundo.
His Renekton was fine. His Shyvana was fine. He survived that. He
Hold
survived,
on there.
he survived that meta completely. I'm trying to think what else. I don't remember Freddy ever being weak in that regard. Like oh Freddy, they need to replace him. I never remember him being like a weak point for the team in 2 years of LCS. So when I say
Right, so how can you question
don't know how
that judgment?
I don't know how you could say that it's like, oh, let's bring in some challenger player over somebody who's
I've personally watched Odo rip Freddy's head off in scrims for weeks on end. So
but scrims don't mean anything. TSM beats Samsung White in scrims. What does that mean? If they're gonna win this year? No, like
you can have your opinion, I'll have mine.
that's
I would take Odo over Mr. Mundo. Yes.
Well, I mean,
Okay, moving on. Okay, go, Stephen. Please finish us off with like something calm and mellow, please.
I'm just gonna say that Alliance's problems seem very have to do how the teammates mesh with each other. I mean, I don't know the European top laners very well, but I'm just gonna say they should replace Wicked with someone who meshes with the team well and practices more than one champion. It's it.
they need a leader on that team.
They need
Okay, so Alliance have a top lane problem. This has been established.
Well, I mean, it's just you look at Alliance and you look at what Tab said, and it's like, where's the fire in this team? Like, where's the guy that's like, we're gonna go and we're gonna kick ass? I don't
Froggen
see that.
only says it to himself before the matches because he knows his team don't care.
But that is the entire problem. There is no hunger on this team.
Exactly.
But Reckless might fix that. But I don't know. I want to see where else they go. I think it's pretty well established that I'm not really a Wicked fan. I feel like he doesn't give a rip, and at this point, you have to give a rip.
Yeah.
Sorry, you just have to.
Well, he'll say that he does.
We're gonna move on.
I could say I'm
We're
10
gonna
feet
move
tall.
on
It doesn't mean I am.
Okay, so next team we're going to talk about is SK Gaming. There's been a lot of stuff said about this team. Obviously, with Jess's leaving and Kendi leaving, it's been said that What the Fox could be possibly occupying the mid lane role, Forgiven possibly for the AD carry role as well. Okay, so SK were pretty strong last split. Like, we knew that they didn't really have a team of star players. But with Forgiven, who you saw how he played on Copenhagen Wolves. Like, he was the biggest influence on that team in terms of winning, alongside Amazing. I don't really know that much about What the Fox, other than he's been in the challenger scene for quite a while now. He was playing for SK Gaming Prime. Do you guys think that What the Fox and Forgiven would help SK overcome the problems of mechanical play that they had last split?
That is a loaded question.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's That's like 14 parts to that question. You ask it all, it's like as if it's one yes or no.
I'm asking you the last part of the
Is
question.
it the League of Legends final? Is this just like a multi-part essay?
But I don't know. Like, I don't know enough about the EU Challenger scene to tell you if What the Fox is. I love that guy's name though.
I thought you were swearing at first.
Yeah, the person who does know a lot about EU Challenger scene just got up and left. But I don't know if he's enough. I don't know if he's better than Jez's. I just don't know. Jez's isn't great, so
last split. Let's look at Jessus and how he played.
Jezis isn't great, like I just said. Like, it wouldn't be hard to replace him, really. It wouldn't. But I don't know if this guy's better than that. Like, you don't know. It's a new player, right? Then you have all those things of pressure and stuff. Forgiven's definitely a mechanical upgrade over Candy Panda. 100%.
Yeah.
I think that could maybe be the carry that they need on their team.
Yeah, he's really good. I was sad to see him leave.
I guess with Forgiven, great mechanical player, kind of doesn't react to adversity very well though, and that's pretty well documented. So it'll be interesting to see if his previous experience and some of the, in many cases, not all fair, but in some cases, some of the fair criticism that he's had has made him, like, has mentally toughened him up enough that when adversity hits, he'll be fine. What the Fox, as a challenger player, he's solid. John, I don't have your scrim knowledge, but from what I remember from Challenger Series stuff, the guy was solid. He wasn't, he wasn't.
What the Fox?
Yeah. He wasn't astonishing, but he was like, well, that's a solid player, and now he's going to get even more developed. But give us a little more insight on that. I'm not real sure, and I don't really want to misspeak here.
Well, the Fox, it's kind of strange. Like, it kind of came out of nowhere, in the sense, like, it wasn't a solo queue superstar. He was never, like, really high rated. But he put out performances on that SKP lineup that were, like, above the level anyone expected of him. Like, he was competing with Forbidden in almost every matchup that they played, going even or, like, losing slightly or even winning sometimes. It's like, this guy, I had no prior knowledge of him, and when I seen him, I was quite impressed. But there's a difference between competing in the Challenger and the LCS, because there's a lot more that comes into it strategically. Like, I don't think that HTK at the time were putting a lot of jungle pressure on What the Fox. I think it was pretty much just a 1v1, you know what I mean? Whereas in LCS, it's a lot more 2v2 focused in those matchups. So we'll yet to see how it does. I mean, 1v1, I think he'll go up against anyone without issue. But when, more pressure comes from the jungle and stuff like that, we'll see how it goes.
Would you replace Jez's with him, though, if it was up to you?
No. Here's the thing with Jez's, right? You could probably, like, at the start of the season, like, if they would put any mid laner in there and developed them that you wanted, they chose Jez's. Now, this guy's been developing for the past year, and you need to keep that in mind. He moved from ADC to mid. His potential, he's not reached his ceiling yet. He's only mastered, like, one champion as such, maybe two, like Orianna and Ziggs, maybe. Ziggs was really good. So if you give him more time to expand that champion pool and, like, sort of find himself a little bit more, then I don't see why, like, What the Fox is a better pickup,
No, I could see that. He did definitely get better over the course of the year. I honestly have no idea. I've never really heard of this What the Fox guy until last. He did play in the last Splits promotion series, didn't he? Like, he played in one of the last. Was it this year? Yeah, and he didn't get in.
He was playing on the SK Prime. Which was, like, SK's, like, challenger team as such. I think the manager from that team has went to the full SK lineup, as far as I know. So, like, he knows the player as such, you know what I mean? That's why he'll have brought him in. As managers like to do, they like to bring in players that they know. So I guess that's the reason behind the decision.
Interesting.
The last team that's had a lot of roster changes has been Roccat in Europe. We've had, I don't know if Willight's been confirmed.
Yeah,
but
he has.
Yes.
Yeah, because I remember them putting out that little like that curse-esque thing that they did where you have like a silhouette of the player. That
Smash
Willite
Bros.
AD carry. I think that's a pretty obvious upgrade over Saliva. Willite performed even on Copenhagen Wolves, especially when he first came in. Another thing that I don't know has been confirmed or not. I'm pretty sure this is just a rumor as well. Is Overpower playing top lane and Nukeduck going to mid lane. Do you think that Overpower will be able to transition easily into a different role when he was so inconsistent in the mid lane last split?
I mean, his champions were pretty strange. Like, he played like a wide variety of champions. I don't know how many of them you can play top, so maybe he's really got a deep champion pool at playing average on all these champions and can do well, or I don't know. I've not seen him. I've not seen him play top.
His Kale was really good, right? And Kale's a champion that you can play top. And that was like the one champion that they used to have to ban out against him, because that basically got them into the LCS, was Kale. But I think it's just going to be it's really nice for a team, I think, to have a top laner that can pick up whatever champion you need him to pick up for your strategy and just tell him to play this champion and know that he'll at least be able to play it average. He might not be the best at it, but he'll be able to play it well enough. I think that's a big asset to have in the top lane.
Mm-hmm.
It got Najin Whiteshield to the World Championship, so because
There you
Save's a former mid laner.
There you go.
So it's definitely there's some precedent.
I think that apart from these, the most important thing to talk about is the fact that we actually have Koreans coming over to Europe in the form of the new Millennium roster. Do you think they're having better play? Well, Millennium never really had a problem with individual players on their roster. They just didn't seem to work together. But do you think that now that they've finally made a big roster change, that they'll be able to overcome this 8th to 6th place area that they've been stuck in for the last season?
Yeah. I never rated Cottonix. I'm going to be that guy. I never thought he was good. He never got into any challenger teams previous, between his time off Millennium and going back on them when they were alternate or whatever. The guy, I thought he was replaceable right from the start. So bringing a Korean instead of him is already a huge upgrade, even with the communication issues. And then Raya's pretty well versed. He was at one point considered, top 2, top 3 mids in the world. So, you can't argue with that. I don't see how it can be a bad thing. You can argue communication, but we've already seen that that's not an issue when you can play that at that level.
Yeah, he's definitely an upgrade over Kurt, but it's the end of the trackball era. No longer will every single.
I don't want to hear about the trackball.
Thank God.
Be prefaced with and guess what, guys? He plays with a trackball.
I
Stop.
don't think anyone wants to hear about that ever again.
I think that Millennium, in honor of Kurt's departure, should change their logo to a trackball.
Yeah, but they don't have them
Wow.
anymore.
Idea.
They need to give them all out, all the spare ones that they've got sitting lying around, from the sponsors. Because no one's got to use them now, so you can use them as a giveaway.
Oh my God, yeah, that's probably true. Just literally give them to fans because it's not like anyone's going to buy one of those.
I can't believe we're discussing the validity of a trackball in this show. Okay, getting back to
I'm gonna
back to the
pelt you.
roster.
Exactly.
After this show, Dave, I'm gonna pelt you with trackballs all the way from the States.
Good.
Okay.
Bring it.
Yeah. Moving back onto the topic of Millennium.
I think-
Ryu Horo. It's interesting because that's kind of the engine. John said it best. The mid lane in solo queue is 1v1. The mid lane in the LCS is 2v2. Mid laner jungle. Well, that communication, at least, even if the two of them are only speaking Korean and confusing their 3 teammates, that should be solid in the laning phase. And that's good. That's a good problem to solve. Now, I wonder, is it really going to be that? Are you just kind of substituting a better version of Kerp here because Millennium was always this team that was mechanically solid, but then they do this random ridiculous thing in the mid game, and you just be like, oh, well, there goes their lead. Oh, they just lost. That is Millennium to a T. Oh, they're playing so well. They're playing so well. Why the hell did you just engage that? And you're dead. That is how a lot of Millennium's games went. So I guess the premise now becomes, does Millennium get a big enough lead that they don't have that problem anymore, or when they make the eventual mistake, they're just like, whatever. Okay, now our 8K lead is only 4K, and we can battle out of it. Or is that the victory condition, or are we saying that two Koreans that have spotty English are going to magically fix overall team communication in the mid and late game? I have a hard time believing that. If it's mechanical, if you're going to just do the Starhorn World Club and brute force mechanical win, great. You're better at Millennium. But if you want to do something nuanced, no.
Well, I think that it might fix it actually could fix the mid game issues, because like if you look at it, a lot of the mid game is dictated by the jungle, and just in terms of what fights to pick and stuff like that, it's not that hard to say like no and fight or go, right? You know, like these are very simple. Like they can have a rule that like kind of what Starhorn did, where the rule was like if Insect goes, we all go, because once Insect goes, he's not coming back. Like that's the end of it. So
that'll take a while to build that kind of trust up, though.
Of course it will, but I'm saying that it definitely, I think, could fix a lot of the problems. If you have, if it's going to come down to, are they better at shot calling than Cotton-X and?
You have to assume that Horo is really the one that's going to be doing most of the shot calling, because if you remember, the bullets really started to go down after Cacao left to join the KT Arrows, and that makes me think, and I'm sure Emily's going to yell at me in Skype because I'm not the KT fan she is, makes me think that Ryu was not as big a shot caller as someone like Cacao was. So I'm not off the Korean hype train. I think it'd be great. I think you can help professionalize your team, but at the same time, just because you're from Korea doesn't mean you're a savant at the game.
No, that's true.
Well, I actually remember Monty talking about how KTB, their Ryu strategies or sneaky barons were kind of called by a combination of Ryu, Uzmafa, and Score.
Yes. Yeah,
those three. And I don't know how much influence all of that trio that Ryu had, or how many ideas came from him, but it's kind of a whether or not it works or whether or not it doesn't work situation, because whether or not he can communicate those ideas with the team and whether or not those will work are kind of up in the air. But KTB's surprise, like, in-game strategy, shot calling, or their randomness, I guess you could call it, that could possibly be carried over into Millennium with Ryu. But like I said, that all comes down to whether or not Ryu is able to communicate those ideas properly to his teammates in-game. Because that's not something they plan out beforehand. It's not like they're, all right, against this team, we're going to sneak Baron to like 33 minutes, all right, and so go split push bottom. I mean, they usually just kind of did it whenever the opportunity presented itself, or they forced the opportunity to present itself.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, we'll see a situation, but it's a possibility.
Summing up all of the things that we've talked about in the West so far, where do you think that Europe and North America are going to be, like, in what kind of state are they going to be in next season? Do you think that they're going to be in better form? Do you think they're going to be worse, Thomas?
It depends a lot on what changes in Season 5. It's not really that they're going to be worse or better as the game goes. Like, we don't know what the changes are going to be, but it's not like you're going to sit here and you're going to import all this talent and North America and Europe are going to take a massive step up. The real interesting thing, if you ask me, is going to be the Billionaire Boys Club, a.k.a. China, taking over everything because they'll buy it out. But
that's true.
That's just my opinion.
Well, what I think is going to be fascinating, at least for this next LCS split, is it seems that a lot of Korean players have been interested in coming to the West. And as we're going to talk about soon, like, half the Korean players are now unemployed, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's going to be a huge, like, if I'm CLG, I'm very, very, very happy right now. because you can just pick up whatever Korean you want. Basically, they're all up for a lot of them are up for grabs. So it's going to be a very. I think both Western regions will get a lot stronger in terms of the talent, and hopefully they'll start to reflect in solo queue once you have some of the Korean. I mean, maybe the Korean players that come over here will just adapt to the Western culture and stop trying in solo queue. But hopefully it goes the other way around, and it makes our solo queue more difficult.
Do you really think that a lot of Korean players will come to Europe, though, considering the offers that it has from China and North America? Like, the league it's different here. Like, there's not as much money in Europe. Like, we don't have big sponsors. We don't have the money that China has. We don't have almost the personality and the culture and the showiness of everything that they have. What do you guys think about that?
There's only
The
so
money.
many teams.
Rip Europe, I guess.
No, there's only so many teams. You can't all go to North America and China. Like, there's only so many spots in each league. So, it might be bottom of the barrel, but you'll get more Koreans coming over.
You've already got two. We just talked about it.
Oh,
You just
yeah.
got Rio and Oro, so it's like I think you'll get some for sure. It just depends, which ones will you get? That's the question.
Well, that's what it's all about. I mean, the big names are going to get the big offers in China and NA, and you see that with the daddy thing.
You could see Alliance. You could see Alliance pick up a Korean with the amount of money they've got. You know what I mean? Like a really good one for sure.
Froggen said that
Everyone talks
Korean
about
that Froggen said that the only Korean that they would think about getting was Mana, but that's not happening, obviously.
Hold on a minute with the Alliance and money thing. Okay, everyone says that Alliance is really rich because of the owner and blah, 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 but they couldn't even pay a coach a wage. Like, are you telling me that, what? Their coach wasn't getting paid for 6 months or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of
So
the
where
stuff.
are they pulling? If they're not going to pay for staff, what you think they're going to pull out all this money for Koreans?
That's pretty messed up.
If they do, I'd be pretty mad.
Moving on from the West now, we're going to move over to Asia. We can kind of talk about China and Korea as a whole rather than individually because of everything that's been happening. I feel like before we discuss the people leaving and everything, because that's mainly down to the huge one team rule and everything like that that's being put in. We should probably talk about that before we talk about players specifically leaving certain teams. So the first thing I want to talk about is what was discussed on the On Gamers article and everything about what's happening with OnGameNet, Kesper, and Riot Korea. Straight off the bat, first question is, when you first finished reading that article, what stuck out to you as the biggest problem in those changes?
The biggest problem?
Yes, the biggest problem.
The fact that getting into Korea as a professional just got an order of magnitude harder.
Yeah. Like, it wasn't hard enough.
Yeah, that's really worrying because I mean, part of we always used to praise Korean infrastructure, and half of that's going to disappear now. I mean, you literally have half as many jobs for professional Korean gamers, and that is because almost every big organization, if not every big organization, had a sister team that they sponsored. Not to mention the benefits you get from having a team that is signed to the same thing. You're basically best friends, so you can literally, you have a big match coming up? Okay, we'll play this composition that they know they always play. We'll do it 100 times for you. And then next week when we have a big match, you can do this for us. You lose that. You lose a lot of what makes Korea so strong. And I think that's not a good decision for the game moving forward. It's the easier way to make the regions all similar, but it's not healthy for esports.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think that's something to go into a little bit more. And I just want to say that I feel like Riot Korea feels like they won the battle, but they absolutely lost the war going forward.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I don't think you can argue that Riot Korea or Riot in general wants to standardize and control everything. And what I mean by that is one team in an LCS style league, and this is when we want you to run stuff. I think that is extraordinarily fair to say. I think there's precedent for that, given how they've acted with the LCS and trying to influence other leagues. So what Riot Korea, or Riot overall, just got was that control. But did they really get it? At the end, did they really, really get it? No, they didn't get it. You got Kespa controlling it. There are now going to be only 8 teams in the league, and 7 of them are going to basically be auto-qualified Kespa teams. So you've got like the 7 big brothers and the run of the amateur litter that's just going to get their head kicked in for a season. They'll get a little money from Riot, and hopefully if they invest the money wisely, they'll be able to be such a competitor with Kespa teams. In other news, there are rainbows shooting out of my butt right now because that's how ridiculous I sound. I mean, it's insane. It is absolutely insane. It's like, congratulations, you have just neutered your best region because you had no foresight into how things work. And it frustrates me to no end from that standpoint. The other standpoint, the Major League Baseball free agency thing we'll get into, I'm excited about. But I look at the decision and I'm like, guys, how can you, in good faith, make this argument to me and think I'm going to buy it? Because how it looks like y'all got played by Kespa, and y'all got played bad by Kespa.
Rainbow shooting out of my butt, that's a good phrase to learn.
Hey, gif it.
Oh my god. I can't believe the show's devolved to this.
Oh,
Oh, please, like that was any different than you napalming people week to week.
No, I'm even more shocked by the Korea thing. I mean, like
okay.
they've ruined OGN too. It's going to be a league now instead of like OGN had the better format. It was more exciting, and they're going to kill it.
What do you guys make of the rosters? Do you think there's going to be major implications with them trying to implement that into the system?
You mean the
What,
10-man
rosters
rosters?
thing?
Yeah.
I don't.
Korea's going to be a farm system for China. There's no
Yeah.
other way around it. You're going to get the 5 guys that play. They're going to do really well. And then suddenly, even if Riot props up their salaries, China's going to come in because China has now an enormous amount of money. Like the amount of money coming out of China right now, it just dwarfs everybody. Like I didn't realize it until I really started looking into it about 2 weeks ago. But okay, great. Now you're going to be a popular guy in China. You're going to be loved. You're going to be adored. And then you're going to be a popular Korean. China's going to come calling. You're going to go to China, and you're going to make a ton of money. And then the next group's going to come up in Korea, and you're just going to have this farm system, and everyone's going to rant about it. And I'm just going to stand here being like, well, I called this 6 years ago. What's up now, guys?
I just had this mental image. I just had this mental image. You know,
It's fine.
Oh my god. Steven.
you know that gif of the guy throwing shoes at Bush? I just had this mental image of any MVP of the week from Korea, and then China's just whipping money at his face. Like, come on, you know you want it.
I think that's a fair image. Now, obviously, you can argue the sustainability of how China is going about their business right now, but it's just like, okay, and I had this conversation with Kelsey. We had a long discussion earlier today. When does the bubble burst? If the bubble bursts in 6 months, the damage that this thing has, that I think is going to happen, is contained. If the bubble bursts in 4 years, at this point, you're hosed. In my mind, that's what I think in terms of this sudden, massive inequality between Korea and China.
What was it that you wanted to say on the topic, John? You were trying to talk at the same time as Steven for a while.
No, it's, the only hope that the West has now, like against the East, is our females, and hoping that these players have some sort of fetish for the white chicks, you know? It's the only way we're going to get them over instead of going to China.
Oh, I was sitting here.
Oh my lord.
With what you were saying, and then the longer you went on, I kind of realized that this wasn't going to be a serious reply.
No, that's all it was.
But I think aside from the fact that I think Kespa just played the hell out of Riot Korea, I do think the move is very interesting in so much that you get to see, was Dandy truly an amazing jungler because he is an amazing jungler, or was he an amazing jungler because of the totality of Samsung White? And one of the things that I liken it to is Major League Baseball. For European fans, I'll just break it down real brief. The New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers have a payroll that on opening day was 7 or 8 times larger than the smallest team in baseball. It was 38 million to 220 million in the Dodgers case, largest payroll in baseball. What does all that money buy you? It bought you stars. And you saw this situation where suddenly it's Super Bowl, World Series or bust. Well, how does that translate to League of Legends? Does the fact that Invictus Gaming can go out and get Dandy and Pawn, as the rumors say, or whoever, or you pull like Imp and Mata. Obviously, Mata's not going to do that. I'm just using that as an example. You can pull these guys, you can give them monster contracts. Does that suddenly mean that team is awesome? Or is it you come in with all this free agent pressure and you don't do it because, in fact, it wasn't that you're mechanically awesome, even though you probably are. It's that Korea can develop an infrastructure, and the developed Korean infrastructure is better than the raw money-driven talent. I think that's a really cool storyline. I just wish it hadn't come about this way.
Dave, do you have anything you want to add on to this?
I mean, not really. It's all really been said. I don't really like how this unfolded, because I don't like the fact that OGN's been switched. I liked OGN. I liked the format. I liked the sister teams. I liked everything about that. And I'm really, really not like, I'm not really a fan of a few teams having all the stars and then other teams having no players, just because it makes the game really unfun to watch in a way. Like when you have, if you have like 2 or 3, like think about NALCS, this like, not this split, but every split up until this split. It was like there was 2 or 3 teams that you didn't even bother watching them play the bad teams. You didn't need to. The game was over before it started, and it kind of like that. Like I like actually watching good games, but I kind of do like watching games just from a fan's point of view as well, just for fun. And when a game is that much of a stomp fest, it's like, okay, well, I can turn this off. I know who wins. There goes half the fun of it, right? Maybe I'm unique in that aspect. Maybe everybody else here is not agreeing with me on that, but.
Well, no. If I know the output of a game, then no, I'm not going to watch it. But I think I buy what you're saying to a certain extent, but at the same time, I kind of don't, because it's like I don't care if you're all stars. If you're not playing well as a team, you're not going to win. There's only one LeBron James in the NBA. And
but
even
the Miami Heat, though, that team was unreal for a few years when they had everybody.
Yeah, but the Miami Heat also lost in the NBA Finals to a team that played better team basketball 2 of the 4 times that they went. And that actually fits my point even more. So I now, in terms of if the Chinese thing's going to work, I don't see that working, quite frankly. But we'll see. It'll be exciting. It'll be different. But I'm not I'm just going to shut up because I've been ranting. I apologize to the viewers.
Oh, no, it's been fun, man.
Okay, so what I wanted to say was, over the course of the next year, the next 2 years even, do you think that we're going to see China emerging as a stronger region because of their money then? Going off what Thomas was saying before?
I'm not sure, because just because they have the players doesn't mean they have the support staff. Support staff needs, I don't know, I think the support staff would need to be bought out as well or something. I mean, if they can get their hands on the coaches or something, I think they might be a better region than Korea maybe in 2 years. But that's a lot up in the air, because we don't know how strong. We don't know just how big a blow the top Korean teams will have been dealt because of this rule. I mean, we have a good guess, but we have a good guess that the team might be weaker as a whole, but we don't know about the impact on the very top Korean teams just yet.
I think it's a formality at this point. Like, as Thomas said, they win the numbers game, you know? Like, it's going to happen at some point. It's just like a matter of when. Like, once they bring in all these players and if they bring in coaching staff and stuff like that, like, it's going to be the most competitive league, that's for sure. It's like the English Premiership, you know what I mean? They've got all the money, they bring on all the TV revenue and whatever, they bring in the best players. You know, that's what happens in any sport. There is one region that will dominate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so starting to talk about some of the players that are probably going to be leaving a career. The Dade to China. Now, we know that it was temporarily thought about for Cloud9. I just want to throw a question in now. Do you think that Cloud9 made a mistake in maybe not picking up Dade if they had that chance? Obviously, we don't know the behind-the-scenes stuff, but do you think that they're holding on too much to their constant roster where they don't recognize when an obvious upgrade needs to be made, when it can be made?
Yeah, if they didn't make that decision, that was purely on the basis of we're all friends and this is our team and we're going to do this because we're friends together kind of thing. Hai seems like a good guy, but Dade is just a better player. Come on. I don't even really think you can argue that rationally.
Mm-hmm.
That he's not, rather. Yeah, I don't think you could say Hai is better than Dade and provide any evidence really that could back up that claim. So the only way to explain it is that they're all friends. And I think, didn't even Hai say it in an interview? He either said it in his AMA or in his interview with Travis after Worlds. I can't remember, that they wouldn't, like their team wasn't interested in switching any players or anything like that. That they wanted to keep that roster.
It was an interview, but I don't recall. I don't think it was with Travis. I don't remember who though.
I feel like with that, I guess I missed the part where Hai is now, he manages the personnel of that team. It's kind of like, yes, he has some pull, but he's not Peyton Manning. He can't say we're keeping so and so. No, John Elway runs the Denver Broncos, so he gets to make the personnel decisions. And I don't think, according to the timeline that I've been told, it wasn't that Cloud9 didn't act. It was that Cloud9 was acting, and then their offer just got blown out of the water by a ridiculously rich Chinese team. I think that's the part that gets lost in this. The negotiations, from what I understand, had been going off and on for a while, but I think it was one of these things where, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and they were on Y, and then here comes a monster Chinese offer, and it's like, I don't blame Dade for going to China for that amount of money. I would go to China for that amount of money in a heartbeat. I wouldn't, past that, I wouldn't care, because then you're set for life when you're talking about the $250,000 a year type salaries. That's just off the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Here's something interesting. What if they implement financial fair play into league? And
how would you do that though?
Riot could cap the salaries that orgs are allowed to pay players if they play in the Riot leagues.
Because there's a million ways around that. Sponsorship deals.
You could get, you can have like personal sponsors through whoever, like for your mouse and that, right? But it's the same in any sport. You see it in football right now, right? There are loopholes, but they would get closed. And Riot could exclude teams that, break these rules from going to Worlds. If they wanted to be that hard line and keeping things in order that way.
I could see Riot trying to do that, but I don't know how that would. I don't think it would work.
My initial reaction to that is, you better have ironclad evidence, because if I'm a North American team and I have been working under the premise of I'm going to give my players $100 handshake under the table whenever they win a game, and Riot tries to bust me on it, I am going to sue, and they block me from being in the LCS. Even with those contracts that are extremely Riot slanted, I am going to litigate the hell out of that. And maybe that's just kind of the American legal mindset because my father's a lawyer coming out. But even the thought of trying to block an organization like that, it's like, all right, well, we'll have our day in court. Hope you got your stuff. Hope you got your ducks in a row, because this is going to get ugly fast.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be my initial reaction. And I also have trouble, like, I don't know how organizations would accept that. Like, if a salary cap, to me, because I love NFL football and they operate under a salary cap, as does the NBA, I think that's kind of normal. I can accept that. I can deal with that in some kind of collectively bargaining process. But my lack of Chinese and Korean economic standards or league standards, would they? And at the end of the day, like, China is the bread maker at this point. China is the one where League of Legends gets played so much. So you don't really want to bite the hand that feeds you. So I think it's, in theory, a good idea, but in practice, you'd have to be really, really careful, or you'd just get litigated against forever.
A question to go alongside this, as one of the major final questions I want to ask you guys, is do you think that China's lack of infrastructure and, well, the one that it doesn't have what Korea has, do you think that China buying the best players from Korea, not having the support to nurture them in the way that Korea can affect the league scene in a bad way in terms of not developing talent to like the ultimate amount that they can get out of a player? Do you think that could become a major problem?
Ooh, in the long term, maybe. I also wonder how much, like, I know that there are some European teams that had a very large coaching staff that played in the World Championship. I also know that there were some Chinese teams that actually requested Western aid for certain games. So I wonder how much of that infrastructure is legitimate, or if it's more kind of a smoke and mirrors campaign. I don't know enough about the inner workings of China. I think one of the issues, well, actually, it's ironic. It's one of the greatest strengths of China, but could also be one of its greatest weaknesses, is that it is a billionaire boys club. A lot of these esports teams are owned by guys that have more money than God. And the reason they own these teams is they want to just kind of hang out with celebrities. If you're into American sports, kind of imagine Jerry Jones. That's the picture I always get, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. So that's a good thing in that you have an owner that's engaged. It's a bad thing in that you have an owner that could get too engaged. They should be practicing, they're out drinking, or they're out doing whatever it is. So it kind of would be something where I personally would have to make a judgment on an owner-by-owner basis, quite honestly.
Well, it's kind of the Wild West in business in a lot of ways, right? Like I don't really want to get too into it, but there's a whole lot of ridiculousness that goes on in the business world in China. So to be honest, I thought even the LMQ thing to NA was kind of already asking for problems with ownership scandals and stuff like that. I mean, it's just such a different set of rules over there than over here that it's very different. You find very often that there's big cultural misunderstandings that can happen when trying to do business. And I don't think League of Legends is an exception.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen and John, what do you think about this?
I don't know. I think Thomas and Dave actually summed up pretty well for me.
Yeah, I agree with Thomas, and like Dave says, it's going to be like Wild West for a while, because we don't know how it goes on over there. Like, unless you're someone that's dealt with this in a previous area, you can't really have that much to go by.
Okay. So that's pretty much summed up everything major that's happened. Everything worth talking about. Well, the major rumors or the major roster changes. We're going to finish off with our usual little Q&A that we do. This one is kind of a little Emily Run special because she's thought of some really, really good questions that I just want to throw at you all. So the first one, many people view Starhorn Royal Club as a shining example of what can be accomplished in spite of communication issues. Does this establish a dangerous precedent for teams acquiring foreign talent without regard for common language and communication, etc.? Who wants to tackle this one?
Yes, it's a dangerous precedent because people will make the assumption that, just because Starhorn Royal Club established a system where we go and whenever Insect goes hard, that we can create a similar environment. No, it's not the same thing because Insect's kind of a commander, and it was his way or the highway, from what I understand. And you can't expect every Korean or Chinese import to command that same level of respect. You can't expect the rest of the team to be able to change their mentality and such that they can follow him in with almost like blind faith or something like that. That is such a hard thing. It's such a hard dynamic to recreate, and I think that is a very dangerous precedent. I think Starhorn Royal Club was a very kind of once in a blue moon kind of thing for what they've accomplished with how they accomplished it.
I
John?
would agree. Or go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was going to say, John, I'm going to put the second part of the question to you. It's how successful do you think that these teams with one or two foreign players will do, specifically like Millennium or the variant Chinese-Korean hybrid teams?
Well, that is like, it's successful and it's going to continue to be successful. Players can learn languages when they move over. And at the end of the day, like, when it comes down to it, mechanical skill prevails overall. Like, you can communicate as much as you want, but unless you have the reactions in a team fight that decides the game, then what good is that communication? You tell me.
For the last part of the question, I'm going to aim this towards Thomas and Dave. Do the proposed changes to the Korean system further put this idea to the test? Because they'll still likely be made up of all Korean players.
No, I wouldn't say so, because again, you're bringing in a Korean player. If they're playing with somebody who's not Korean, that doesn't really discredit how good a Korean player is. But I mean, if they're clearly just getting outplayed in like the lane, then sure. But I wouldn't say so. What do you think?
Well, okay, I'm just reading the question again. The idea that you need to have communication is kind of weird. I think you could probably get by with pings if you were good about it, because Riot has improved the ping system. But I could see that. But I think it'll give us much more examples. I think that would be the way I'd respond. It'll give us much more examples of does the quote-unquote Starhorn Royal Club system, which I do think will end up kind of being the exception to this general rule. Does the Starhorn Royal Club experiment, is it true? Is that what it does? Because, again, you're now going to have a smaller talent pool in Korea. And if my minimum salary in Korea might be okay, I might be able to live on it if I'm on the bench. But what happens if an NA team with a streaming contract comes, or a Chinese team with a way to get into a streaming contract comes? I would make more money and I would be starting, which that will introduce more communications issues. I do not know a player that plays at the highest level of anything, whether it be football, basketball, League of Legends, or competitive chess, that wants to sit on the bench when the big game is on. And that's what you're going to see with these 10-person rosters, unless for some crazy reason, and this is a really weird scenario, and I think Emily actually did I've talked to her about this a couple of times, so I'll add an addendum, and Dave or someone else can kick it around in their head a little bit. You start having these 10-person rosters, and you plug and play based off of the matchup. It would be like fantasy football for League of Legends, in that maybe you're playing against an aggressive mid laner, so you play a guy that's good on AP mages and you hard counter that with an AP mage. I think that would be interesting. I don't think where it's going to go, but that if they were able to do something like that, you could have a situation where those rosters wouldn't just be 5 guys and the B team. But that's such a radical departure from anything that we've seen that I would be really, really hesitant to think it would become the norm.
Aren't they allowed to have their second team playing in the second league? Like isn't the team allowed to have their second 5 members playing in the second, like the Korean B League, or did I read that wrong?
Well, yeah, but even then, congratulations.
Casper players only the B League, isn't it?
Yeah, so why I feel like it would be worse to plug and play.
Well, I'm assuming that the Kespa B League, like, do you really, like, if you're Zenix Blast, did you really want to play in NLB? Like, you saw it. You saw teams that would fall into NLB, and I realized that's a tournament compared to a league.
Mhm.
And they just wouldn't really care. I mean, sure, you can get 10 extra circuit points. Whoop-de-doo. I don't see how you're going to manage that many egos, because there will be a definitive A team and there will be a definitive bench team.
Mhm.
And how are you going to massage those egos? Because just like everybody wants to play in the big game, there's a really solid amount of ego in professional gamers. Just throwing it out there, guys.
Well, of course, but that's the motivation for the A player to perform, or the B player gets a spot. And for the B player, you want your team, your B team, to be the best B team, so that some people from struggling A teams say, "Hey, look, we need that guy. He carried his B team." It's a farm system.
Well, if you're okay with Korea being a farm system, more power to you. But I think that's a little bit. I think the
was
greater
thinking
farm
for
system is
themselves.
China.
Well,
Okay.
it will probably be that China ends up poaching it, but I think if it wasn't for that, then I think the system would be fine-ish. It's just I really dislike the no sister teams, and I dislike the disbanding of OGN. I just dislike the whole thing, so I'm still kind of salty over it.
Well, how do they fix that? Longer player contracts, buyout clauses that are sky high. There's ways around poaching.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's not cool.
You would have okay. That's
You're
the
my
thing.
player, you can pay me 200 grand for him. There you go. Now I'm rich, motherfucker. And I can buy someone expensive as well. What are you going to do? Minimum fee release clauses. Get them involved.
Right, but if you're a professional gamer and you have any sort of brain, there's no way I'm going to sign a contract with a
Well,
massive
then you're
buyout.
not a pro. Then you're not a pro. You don't get moved up from the challenger scene to my Kespa organisation. You don't get that chance.
Oh my God.
I've got 200 other guys sitting out at that door waiting to get in. I'll give one a name it. Oh, what's that? Sorry, you want to sign? All right, here on the dotted line. Yeah, thank you. So we can go about it.
I doubt that is a sustainable environment, quite honestly.
No, it is.
I see what you're
The
saying.
only way around it. Longer extended contracts with out fees so that Chinese teams can't poach them without funding me and my organisation well enough that I can replace these players like that. It's the only way. You want to be daddy big bucks or whatever, you know what I mean? China, then do it. Play hardball. If you're going to buy players, it's going to be for a lot more than what you thought.
That's one way to stop it, but I would hope that any player worth his salt and realizes his value would be like, okay, I'm gonna go to a different team, deuces, because there has to be some kind of agreement there, and
But then how do new players come up then? You know what I mean? If there's going to be a limited spots, then. But that's the thing. If Kespa make it a rule that you need to have a buyout clause on your contract for X amount minimum, there you go. If you want to play in the Korean OGN or whatever it's going to be, then that could be mandated, you know?
yeah, again, I realize my background in contract buyouts means that is so radically weird that I would never agree to a contract
It's
like
law.
that.
It's law in Spanish football. See if you look up La Liga, it is required that every player has a buyout clause in their contract. So, you know, what's wrong about putting it in the league, especially in, you know, where all the talent's coming from?
Right. But okay, what I'm saying is it's required even in college football to have a buyout clause. But the only coaches that agree to multi-million-dollar buyouts are the ones that have no leverage. I'm saying the size of the buyout is a point that you would have to negotiate about. And if Kespa is going to do something hard and fast, how does that help league growth? You have to do this. There's no going around it. Well, I see what you're saying. I do. I just don't think that it's going to be this cure-all.
No, but the prices should be inflated if China is willing to pay all this money to the players.
But can Korea afford it? Because it doesn't matter if something should be inflated. If the organization can't sustain paying the players that much money, then there's nothing you can do about it, right?
No. You're not getting what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the buyout price should be inflated if the amount of wage that they're spending on wages is going up that much as well. If you're
That makes sense.
If you're paying $250,000 to a player, like on his wage, like shouldn't the transfer fee be like higher than that? That's the way it is in most sports. Transfer fees are huge compared to the contracts.
That's common in European soccer, U.S. And this is why I say my buyout background's a little different than yours. In U.S. sports, it is different than that. But I get where you're going.
That makes more sense. Like a proportion of the contract that you're going to be paying him, that's what you should have to pay. Like 10 to 25% or something like that. Make it steep.
I'm going to wrap up this question. Just want to say a big thank you to Emily for that awesome discussion that we just had there. Okay, so that's going to be everything that we're covering this week for the show. If you want to join us next week, we'll be here at the same time discussing more probably random roster changes and rumors and stuff like that, and maybe bitching about Korea a little bit more. We know Thomas loves to do that. Okay. Do you guys want to say any thank yous to anyone?
I'm not generally this angry. This situation just bothers me a lot. In my defense.
Shout out to Emily for giving us the only question we had. It was a good question, but also the only question, so thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Just shout out to everybody who watches, as usual, on this live and then on the VOD. We love you.
Okay, so a big thanks to everyone watching now and everyone that will watch this VOD. And also, obviously, a big thank to all of our panelists for giving their opinions on the show. Join us next week. We'll be here at the same time.
See ya.
Bye-bye.